Lawyers for Israel at the ICJ took particular issue with the fact that South Africa, in their presentation, focused on statements that Israeli officials had made that hinted at what they considered to be genocidal intent. Here is the lawyer for Israel talking about that.
To produce random quotes that are not in conformity with government policy, produced as describing is misleading at best. Such as the statement by the Minister of Heritage, for example, who is completely outside the policy and decision-making process in the war.
Okay, so the issue there is being presented as these statements are not admissible or can't be said to get to the frame of mind of the Israeli government because they're being made by people who are no longer in power. Except that they are not all being made by people who are no longer in power. Some of the quotes that South Africa used are people who are still very close to power. So we're gonna go to a few of those. So first of all, here is an example from Israeli President Isaac Herzog.
It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true. They could have risen up, they could have fought against that evil regime which took over Gaza in a coup d'etat. But we're at war. We are at war. We're at war we are defending our homes. We're protecting our homes. That's the truth. And then when a nation protects its home, it fights. And we will fight until we'll break their backbone.
Okay. Every Palestinian is responsible, all of them, for what was done and for the fact that they did not cast the shackles of Hamas off of them. So to, maybe the parents of an 8-year-old who was blown apart by an Israeli bomb, your 8-year-old should have done something about Hamas. They really should have overthrown that organization. That is what the Israeli president said, not someone who served as Secretary of Agriculture back in the 90s, the Israeli president. Here is Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant. This is on October 9th.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
For those who are listening to the podcast, the translation of that is, we are imposing a complete siege on the city of Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals and we are acting accordingly. Several days later, this is on October 13th, he said, Gaza won't return to what it was before. We will eliminate everything. That is the defense minister for Israel, not in the 70s, right now. So again, look, in addition to all of the facts on the ground of what has been done, and much of it was presented by South Africa, over 23,000 dead, 2/3 of them women and children. 4% of Gaza's population has died. A measurable percentage of the entire population has already died. A far, far, far higher percentage has been driven from their homes that are now destroyed and there's nothing to be to return to. 70% of the infrastructure of Gaza has been destroyed. More journalists have been killed in Gaza than any other war over the last century. There isn't a hospital in Gaza that has not been struck by attacks. This is not an accidental bombing of one thing that the international community is focusing on. Every single hospital has been struck. And as you were pointing out, Francesca, not only journalists are being killed, but international aid workers and medical professionals are being killed in large numbers as well. And the moral and rhetorical defense for that is being made, not just by people who are on the extreme fringe of Israeli government or past governments, but by people who hold power right now. People involved explicitly with the defense of Israel saying this. Francesca?
No, 100%. And I think one of the most memorable and chilling moments from what South Africa presented was that those comments that are made by the president, by Benjamin Netanyahu, prime minister, saying things like, the Amalek, invoking this biblical reference to a people that must be destroyed, that hurt you, so you must root out their seed and whatnot, that was then echoed in chants by IDF soldiers on the ground. as they are relishing in, there are no innocent civilians. We will destroy the seed of Amalek. In other words, and one of the points that South Africa makes is also when you're trying to kill future generations, you're engaging in genocide and leaving newborn babies to die, depriving them of their incubators and the electricity they need to survive. I mean, these are genocidal war crimes, right? That is what they set out to prove, and they did it. So it doesn't matter all the PR. It doesn't matter, oh, but Hamas, oh, but this, oh, but, and by the way, a lot of the atrocities that, yes, there were atrocities on October 7th, a lot of the atrocities have now been proven to have not, some of them didn't happen. There weren't babies slaughtered and beheaded. That just didn't happen. There was a pregnant woman taken hostage. There wasn't a baby slaughtered. That just didn't happen. So again, like, this game of smoke and mirrors continues, and yet South Africa is staying the course and saying, here is our evidence. Your own soldiers, your own leaders are showing it, to say nothing of your actual actions.
Yeah, I mean, all that talk about like we're going to continue until their backs are broken. It's like, well, when are you going to be satisfied that has happened? You know what I mean? And then right after that, talk about like, oh, we've gotten rid of everything, no water, no fuel, no electricity, none of that. And then just this rhetoric, you calling them animals and talking about eliminating everything. Like, it doesn't not sound genocide-y, you know what I mean? And like it's like they're like, well, we got to keep going until we root out all this extremism. But like, of course, this is going to just create more extremism. It's a never-ending feedback loop, right? So like, what is the end goal then? Mm-hmm. I mean, isn't it just, when is it ever going to stop? When they're all gone? Because there's a word for that. You know what I mean? Because like, if that's not what the end goal is, then what is it? It kind of, I don't know if this maybe this is a reach, but it kind of reminds me about, as an American, when I have arguments with conservatives about like, they say that no taxpayer dollars should be used to pay for like poor people's health care or food stamps or any of that type of thing. And then you ask them like, so you think we should just allow poor people to die then? That's what should happen? And they'll all be like, no, of course not. I'm not saying that. And it's like, well, what are you saying then? Because there's only, that's the only way that can go, right?
They should die, but I don't want to hear about it, Trey. It's like,
I don't want to say it.
Right. Well, this feels like a similar scenario to me. You know what I mean? It's like there's really only one like tenable result for Israel here. And it seems like genocide, but they're never gonna acknowledge or admit to that. You know what I'm saying? So
well, and in addition to the quotes that we've provided about, the willingness to just have all of the buildings be destroyed, the people wiped out, there's also, and TYT and other shows on the network, including TDR, have talked recently about the increasing talk about just forced movement, voluntary immigration, or voluntary insofar as there is nothing there anymore. So, hey, you've been bombed to the border with Egypt. Maybe you just keep heading in that direction. That's what it's feeling like. And we will see. Look, there's obviously a lot more that can be said about this. I'm gonna end with, if we could go ahead to our last video and get to one of, I think, the more ludicrous arguments that was made was that many of the buildings that are falling apart aren't falling apart as a result of bombing. It's actually something else. Take a look at this.
Damage to civilian structures is another fact claimed by South Africa as evidence of genocide. But South Africa does not consider the sheer extent to which Hamas uses ostensibly civilian structures for military purposes. Houses, schools, mosques, UN facilities, and shelters are all abused for military purposes by Hamas, including as rocket launching sites. Hundreds of kilometers of tunnels dug by Hamas under populated areas in Gaza often cause structures above to collapse.
Times over, you can strike literally anywhere you want because Hamas has used it, which I'm sure in many cases is true, but isn't that an amazing get out of jail free card to commit horrific acts that now every schools, hospitals, they're all fair targets. But that lawyer went beyond that to say the ground is dug out behind the building, but be under the buildings. That causes them to collapse. The fact that a bomb was dropped in the building is a coincidence. It's neither here nor there. No, it's just that the ground was unstable because there were so many tunnels underneath it. Like, we know the state of infrastructure in Gaza. We know what it looks like there. The idea that the chief problem is not one of the most concentrated bombing campaigns that the earth has seen since World War II. It's that the ground is riddled with tunnels seems insulting. Quick final thoughts before we go to break, Francesca.
Yeah, 2,000-pound bombs, guys, 2,000-pound bombs. Oh, I'm sorry that their infrastructure can't withstand that. No, this is what you're trying. You are trying to wipe Gazans off the map and Gaza off the map. And it is going to be, it's very fun. It's a fun exercise to see how Israel tries to defend itself. But I just want to say hats off once again to South Africa, the place that successfully defeated apartheid and then is now leading a charge to stop and defeat apartheid and genocide elsewhere. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought about trying to make a joke about that earlier, about it being appropriate to South Africa, because if anybody knows apartheid. But then I thought, but that's unironically true, and they do seem qualified to talk about this. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't know. I hope it gets better over there soon. I don't know what else to say. I'm sure that's not going to happen. Go ahead, John.
Fingers crossed, because every day that goes by, more and more people die. Regrettably, and that should be the international goal, is to end that. We don't want to see any more civilians die. I don't want to see Palestinian civilians die. I don't want to see Israeli civilians die. And the path that the region is on is one of just almost mind-boggling suffering and destruction.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.